Okay, you guys, so this is going to be my next quick one. And it's dealing with the myth that Black men are marrying at significantly higher rates than Black women. And I've actually had this brought to me many times. And like I told you, like I just reached a place where I was like, I'm going to do this research. Like, I'm going to look into this. Is this the case? So, my links are in the description box. The sources that I'm going to be using today are the US Census Bureau, the 2016 and the 2017 American Community Survey. I have attached the link where you can view the surveys, not just for 2016 and 2017, but for the prior years from the US Census Bureau. I also am attaching a link from Black demographics, and I'm also attaching a link to Pew Research. All of these are my sources: US Census Bureau, Black demographics, who also source the US Census Bureau, and Pew Research, who also source the US Census Bureau. So really, you could just stick with my first link, but you know, for overkill, because some people are not good with navigating the graphs and charts and things at the US Census Bureau, although I did give direct links to those. I've also provided these other sources for you readers. But like I said, please vet this information yourself, just like I chose to vet it for myself. So let's go ahead and get straight into this. Again, this will be a quick one. Off top, I'm already thinking of some other things that I already have. Oh, actually, I think I'll do one more tonight after this one. And that's going to be, why haven't Black people made it in society yet? Okay. What is behind that? Why don't we own anything and all of that? So I think that'll be the third one I do tonight. And then I'm going to take a break and I'll probably revisit this sometime next week. So let's get to the topic at hand. Are Black men marrying more than Black women? Okay. Are Black men wearing, I've heard as high as 50% more of the time. And the fact is exactly the opposite. Actually, Black women marry more than Black men. Black women do. And of the current marriage statistics, it's almost the same for Black men and women. So I don't know where people got this. I don't know what they're sourcing, where they're getting their information from. But if we're talking about legal marriage, the government keeps track of that. And so I just went to the government and I let the government tell me who's married. And so there's just no debating this. All right. So let's go ahead and look at those stats. These are the stats because, you know, the laws are different for every state. For individuals that are 15 years and older, Black, and it goes through if they are married, divorced, separated, which is still technically married, right? Widowed, or if they've never been married. So let's be clear off top. Half of all Black people basically haven't been married, and more Black men have not been married than Black women. So let's be clear about that. Although the numbers are still very close. And these are rounded numbers. So these aren't exact, but they're rounded, you know? So if it's 5 and up, you round up. If it's less than 5, you round down. You know, we learned that in elementary school. Okay, so let's not penny pinch over this. So 50% of Black people basically have never been married. 52% of Black men have never been married. 48% of Black women have never been married. So Black women actually marry more than Black men, right? That's throughout, and throughout all of the United States, the disparity isn't that big, okay? Because 34% of all Americans have not been married. So I guess I'm debunking two things at once, right? Kind of debunking two things at once, okay? Because we try to make it like there's this great gulf between what our people are doing and everybody else in the country. And the gulf is just not that great, okay? The gulf is around 10 to 12%. So I suppose I'm debunking two myths right now. I'll have to change the title. As far as Black people who are widowed, meaning, now, mind you, these are people who have been married, but they are now widowed because their partner is dead. It sits at about 6% for all Black people, 3% for Black men, and 8% for Black women. So listen to me. When we talk about the variance of people actively married, which is 32% of Black men and 26% of Black women, let's keep the widows in mind for the year, right? Because 8% of them they were married, but their spouse died, which would actually bolster the marriage rates for Black women because we have no control over our husband dying, right? So let's keep that in mind. Let's also look at the separation rates. 3% of Black men have been separated or are separated. That means they're married but separated. 4% of Black women, it sits about the same. It sits about the same with only a 1% difference. And as far as divorce goes, 10% of Black men have been divorced, 13% of Black women. We don't get divorced at higher rates than other people. The rate for all of the United States is 11%. We can just debunk a whole bunch of stuff today about marriage statistics. Again, the CDC reports from 2017 on back, as far as long as they've been doing this particular report, which is the American Community Survey, is in the description box. All right, I think sometimes we're too hard on our people and sometimes we say things about each other that are incorrect. We make it like our community is completely degenerate compared to the rest of the United States, but these stats aren't very different. In our community from the rest of the United States, and it's not like Black men are doing a whole bunch of marrying, but Black women don't want to get married because Black women actually get married more. And any variation between Black men and women, the only major difference is in who has lost their spouse because of death. Because Black women are widowed at a rate of 8% versus 3% for Black men, which would account for why some have been married but are no longer married. And the rates for separation and divorce are identical nearly for Black men and women, at 3% and 10% for Black men respectively, and 4% to 13% for Black women respectively. A 1% variation in separation, a 3% variation in divorce. Compared to the rest of the United States, it's a 2% difference for divorce, and it's on par with the rest of the country for separation. Actually, Black women are widowed at a higher rate than is normal for the country. 6% of all Americans are widowed, 8% in the Black community. These are the realities. Your women get married more, and they lose their husbands more than everybody else in America to death. That's the reality. When we look at people actively married, which is the last stat that we're going to look at here, well, it's the last stat as far as these particular marriage statistics. So we're going to go into who we're marrying, right? When we look into who is getting married more, only 29% of Black people on average get married. We're just not running around. Are actively married, I should say. Only 29% of Black people are actively married. 50% of us have never been married. 52% for men, 48% for women. So that average is 50%. So to act like Black men are making moves in the marriage world that Black women aren't is simply not true. Black women actually get married slightly more. Now, as far as being actively married, remember, Black women are widowed at a rate of 8%. And this is an ongoing calculation because every year they recalculate it. So you can watch this trend of Black women being widowed for as far back as they do the American Community Survey, the US Census Bureau. So this is something that we can prove year after year after year, this average. 32 to 26%, men and women respectively in the Black community. 32 to 26%, men and women respectively in the Black community are actively in a marriage. And those statistics are consistent for 2016 and 2017, according to the US Census Bureau and their American Community Survey. And remember, they would know because we're talking legal marriages. And the government keeps track of their own marriages, right, that they sanction. Now, what is interesting is that Black women are still married more than Black men, despite the fact that 1/4 of Black men don't marry Black women at all. 1/4. And I might be including a couple of other that I didn't put in there yet. Yeah, I might be including some another survey. I'm sorry, another statistic that I didn't put in there yet, but I think I am going to include. So strangely, Black women are managing to get married at almost identical but slightly higher rates than Black men, despite the fact that 1/4 of their men aren't actually marrying us. 1/4 of the Black men that get married do not marry Black women, and yet we still get married more. 24% of recently married Black men were intermarried. 24% is basically 25%, and 25% is 1/4. And yet, Black women's marriage rates are still slightly higher, but they are widowed at a rate of almost 10%, 8%, right? Which is basically 10%, which is significantly higher than the national average for women being widowed in marriage, which just points to an unfortunate situation with Black male death, right? Comparatively, 12% of newly married Black women were intermarried. And most of the people that we intermarry with are white at the rate of 11%, and then Hispanic following that. And that's pretty much all that we marry. Black people tend to marry white or Hispanic people, which are just white people of Spanish origin, when we do intermarry. So these are the hard stats and facts. Those numbers are not off, Frantonio. That's the census. And it's done in percentages. The numbers can't be off because when you get married legally, you go to a courthouse. So the numbers are exact. So there we go. Black women do get married more than Black men, Nikki Love. The stats are in. I've given you the links to the US Census. Feel free to read it yourself. You can not only read it for 2017, you can read it for 2016, 2015, 2014. You can read it for all those years. Research till your heart is content. But we know that the census has access to all court records throughout the country, so we know that their numbers are solid. They have access to all the death records, all the divorce records throughout the country, so we can't refute their numbers. And so I wanted to come up here and I wanted to dispel that myth. I don't know. I tried to find out like where was this statistic coming from? I have no idea. I was not able to find where anybody was coming up with this statistic. I feel like somebody just literally made it up because I couldn't find the original study or survey or what people were looking for or found. I could not find it. I literally couldn't find it. So I have no idea. I don't know what these people were thinking. I don't know where they came up with that statistic. I have no idea. I was unable to find it. I feel like somebody just literally made it up. And I'll tell you why I feel like somebody made it up. Because the link that I provided in my description box is the link to all of the surveys from this past year and all years prior to it that they were doing the survey. And so I'm just curious how anybody got confused. But like I said, you know, I had this stat thrown at me so many times I didn't have a rebuttal for it. But now I have a rebuttal, and that's that it's a crap stat and has nothing to do with reality. And I'll just point them to the US Census Bureau, who kindly focused all this information in one area for us. So all you have to do is read the data. And so with that said, I'm going to, Frantonio, what are you talking about? Frantonio, Black demographics was just for reading. You don't have to source them. You can go straight to the US Census, because if you look at the chart on Black demographics, which I just put there for people who refuse to go to the census, they're simply citing the Census Bureau. That's all they're doing. And the first link that I provide is to the Census Bureau. And so you guys can feel free to check that out. Vet it for yourself, right? Vet it for yourself. There's no confusing the data. And you don't need to use a secondary source, because I provided you with the primary source, which is the US Census, and I provided you with more than 1 year. Oh, well then, Frantonio, you can go check out the census, because Black demographics, they just quote the 2016 census. I quoted the 2017 and 2016 information, and those links are in the description box for all of you guys. So you can check that out yourself. So with that said, the third and final one I'm going to do for tonight is, why haven't Black people accomplished anything with ourselves? Why don't we have businesses? Why don't we own land? What is our collective issue? Why are we losers, right? Because that's what white people will ask you, and that's what Black people that are Samboing it up will ask you. There are no excuses. There's no reason that we should not have done more as a people. And we're going to do a timeline of history, and we're going to explain why we haven't gotten to where we've gotten, but why we can get there now. All right. So that's going to be the last one I'm going to do for the night. I hope you guys had, I cannot talk. I hope you guys have enjoyed these. I hope you find the information useful. Thank you to all of my mods that are here. And I will see you guys in about 5 minutes or so for topic number 3. Be sure to thumbs up the video. Please be sure in the comment section if you have any other statistics or facts that you've heard online and social media, on television, that you want to debunk. I will. Please don't ask me to do Black crime stats, because I already have 2 videos with per capita and straight numbers where I debunk that Blacks commit the most violent crime per capita and in raw stats. So don't do that one, because I've already debunked that. I did that. That was one of the first things I did when I came to YouTube. But if you can think of any other ones, go ahead and put them in the comment section. I'll be happy to research them and look them up. And I will see you guys in about 5 minutes for the last one I'm doing tonight, which is, what is wrong with Black people? Why haven't we made it? Why are we such why are we such screw-ups? See you guys shortly.